Hey everyone, welcome back to I guess we're calling this a podcast, just something I'm really enjoying doing this week again, because last week, a lot of people love seeing my son Sage on there and love that format. And I had a lot of comments on it. I actually got a call from one of the largest financial publications in the world to interview me. For some reason, haven't had that interview yet, so we'll see how that goes. But Sage and I did the same thing. He pulled out some topics. He asked a question, and I'll respond to them as we go. It's kind of fun. Some of it I don't know anything about what he's going to ask me. Other things we've talked about before. So, all right, Sage. So let's start. Shoot me the first one.
Okay, Dad, we're here for a second time where I'm going to ask you some general questions about recent news stories or articles that have the general public's attention. So if you're ready, here we go. In a recent study, 52% of all high schoolers believe that they will be millionaires by age 25, which I guess that means I only have 4 years left before I'm a millionaire.
Well, kids, I have some really bad news for you. Unfortunately, this is it's kind of sad because we should be educating children better than this. For half the kids in high school to think they're going to be a millionaire by 25, it's just not a thing, right? That percentage or odds of being one by that age, they're way less than 1%. I'm sure it's 0.001. I don't know what that statistic is. There's only about 3% chance of doing it in your lifetime, and people that become millionaires statistically don't do it well into their 50s. So, we need to sort of step back and say, all right, what's realistic, right? Especially today, coming out of college, jobs aren't paying as much as maybe they should or we want them to. So, now what can you do as a kid to put yourself in a position to become a millionaire? Because anyone can over time with enough time and discipline, and it doesn't require a lot. Anyone can become a millionaire, right? You get out, you work hard, you save a certain amount per month. It's not much. We can actually come up with those stats and give you what they are. And by the time you're in your 50s, you will be a millionaire. That's just how it works. Now, that's not super exciting, right? We like the big stories, and maybe some of you young kids will be a pro athlete or a social media star and become a millionaire in your 20s. But let's face it, that's just probably not a realistic goal. If you make it, awesome, good for you. But there are multiple paths to becoming a millionaire. And there's the guaranteed path, so to speak, meaning you save $1,000 a month for 20 years and it compounds, all these things, right? And you'd be amazed what compound interest does. And that's a guaranteed way, or more high risk way, becoming entrepreneur, starting your own business, becoming a high paid salesperson, or a high paid corporate executive as well. It works, certainly. Many people have gotten wealthy that way. So let's, get our expectations, I think, more realistic and talk to our kids about, what are their expectations? We need to know. Maybe they're realistic or unrealistic. And for you kids out there, a little spoiler alert, when you're 20, you want to be a millionaire, but when you're a millionaire, you want to be 20. So enjoy your time and your age. I can assure you it's a beautiful time of life. So, all right, so let's go to the next question. What do we got?
Okay, well, this next one's not really a headline, but more of a big story that we keep hearing about. What do you think about the new artificial intelligence, ChatGPT?
You know what? Let's come back to that. This is unbelievably important, especially for our kids and grandkids. Parents, you need to listen to me here about what this is. It's artificial intelligence and what's happening in that world right now. The world is going to change dramatically over the coming 10 years. And we need to talk about it in a lot of detail. It's all of us, our jobs, our kids' jobs, things like that. So let's come back to that. That's a little more detailed conversation.
Okay, we'll go ahead and we'll come back to that one because that's a big topic for sure. Okay, so this headline might tie into the first story, but the average American family only has $400 in savings for an emergency.
Well, that headline actually makes me sort of sad. It's sick to my stomach a little bit. Look, if you've never been broke, and I went broke late in life, unfortunately, had just unbelievable, and the insecurity and fear that comes with that when it happens it's terrifying. And when I think about a family, and maybe I use single mothers. It's a little bit of a cliche, but I kind of consider that the most vulnerable group in our society, to be honest. With only, $400 or $500 in savings for an emergency. I mean, that's one flat tire away, one medication you need away from being completely broke. And broke's not enough. I mean, just living in fear. I don't know what the answer is to something like this. I've also seen where 60 something percent, I can't remember the exact number, of even families earning six figures are living paycheck to paycheck. Now, I can assure you, if you're making $150,000 a year, I mean, you can live on that. Let's be realistic. If you're living paycheck to paycheck, that's going to be mostly a keeping up with the Joneses kind of thing, right? I'm absolutely guilty of that. I remember when I first started making what some people consider a lot of money and spending all of that money, right? A new car every year and a bigger house and big trips and all these things, right? And it starts adding up. And the problem is if your income changes, you lose your job, whatever the case may be, you can be in trouble really quick. So all of us need to certainly educate ourselves financially and maybe stop feeling the pressure, right, to keep up with our neighbors, people on social media. It's hard. I'm pointing the finger at myself doing this. I live in a very, very affluent city and community of just incredible people that have just had success you just can't even imagine, right? My friends a lot of them are private jet rich, right? I'm certainly not even in that world. And, you feel the pressure, right? So, again, this kind of goes back to what we were talking about with our kids. We need to educate them, right? If we made a lot of mistakes, maybe it's, quote, too late. It's never too late to make changes. But meaning if, we're in our 50s like I am, it might be hard to turn things around for us. But we can certainly instruct our kids to, how they might manage their money. And money's not everything. That's not what I'm saying, of course. But we all know as adults that are probably listening to this is when you have money stress or money trouble, almost nothing works, right? Almost all marriages that divorces, most of them are over money issues, not all, but a lot of them. And it's stress sort of unimaginable, especially if you have health concerns or something like that comes up. So, we need to do a better job. This headline makes me very sad. I think about the minimum wage, whether you agree with us having a minimum wage or not, it doesn't matter. We do. It's a reality. Hasn't changed since 2009. I mean, that's insane, right? Just the last 2 years alone, we've seen expenses of everything, double, triple, it's crazy, right? Just the price of eggs, So if we're going to have a minimum wage, there has to be some sort of gauge, right? You can't say, oh, that's, working at McDonald's just for high school students. Well, McDonald's is open during the day when high school students are in high school. So, to say that they need to be over there making $7.25 an hour for the last 15 years, that just does not make any sense. There are plenty of adults that are paying their bills that way. Again, I don't have the answers. I know there's debate whether, you should be paid your value and all these things. Okay, but we also live in a very wealthy society to where I'm not sure there's anything wrong with being compassionate towards people. Maybe they don't have the same education that you have, the same opportunities. I don't know. There's always, again, exceptions, good and bad for everything. But, a family having less than $500 for an emergency really makes me sad. I hate to hear that. I've been there before as an adult with kids, and that's just a reality. I'm sharing that with you. Years ago, went through a very, very difficult time, and I remember having a kid in diapers and my power being turned off, and I thought, oh my God, is this happening to me? Right? You feel worthless, you feel insecure, you feel embarrassed, and you just go down the list of things to where, especially as a man, right? I grew up in the world where, a man provides for his family, and that's not totally true, but, and you feel like your one job you didn't accomplish, right? You feel like a failure. So, I have compassion about this, and I think it's a conversation that we as parents and as society, we need to have. I don't know the answer, But it really makes me sad to hear that. And I hope somehow we can come up with something to change that type of situation for families. All right. So anyway, next question.
Okay, so this next story is very personal to me. As someone working in the film industry in Hollywood, Alec Baldwin was just charged with involuntary manslaughter for his role in the shooting on the movie set Rust. I've been on very many movie sets, and this is incredibly disturbing. Safety is always the number one priority on a set, especially when there are weapons involved.
Yeah. Alec Baldwin, this is sort of a crazy story, right? And we need to step back for just a moment and sort of look at this for what it is, right? Alec Baldwin is a very easy target, right? I grew up in the South hunting. I went to the Citadel Military College. I'm a gun owner today, right? So that's something that's been a part of my life since I was born, really. And, you know, you look at someone like Alec Baldwin, he's been this very vocal, sort of left-wing Hollywood elite type, right? He's been bashing conservatives, Republicans forever, and really got under Republicans' skin during the Trump presidency. He played Trump on Saturday Night Live, and, you know, admittedly, some of that was sort of funny, but, you know, really kind of makes people upset, right? He's an easy target. And so when this news came out, a lot of people sort of like, ha, look what you got, Mr. Gun Control, you know, ha ha. And I call myself, people send me memes about it, right? And I'd laugh. But you sort of sit back and think, wait a minute. There was a young girl killed on that set, right? This is, think of your daughter, your sister, your wife, just pick the person in your life, female in your life that you really care about who is innocently working on a movie set, and she's killed, right? Now, Sage, you and your brothers have all worked on movie sets. You've been on sets with guns that were used. These are typically prop guns, but they are able to fire. And, you know, so there's two pieces of this. Alec Baldwin was two things here. He's an actor who pulled the trigger, which he's really not in trouble for that. I mean, he was also the producer of this movie. Now it's his responsibility, right? So everything that happens on set, sort of the producer's responsibility, it really is. And there's also a young girl that ran the armory. That's who provides the weapons for films. Her father was a well-known guy, been doing it in Hollywood for 40 years. She was going to get in the family business. She's in her 20s. I'm not sure how old. It's really young to be handling a very serious situation. Here's where it went bad. I just can't even believe they did this. When they weren't shooting, they would take these guns and go off the side of the set. I guess they were kind of like a Western set, where it's very open. And they took live ammunition and were having target practice. That's so insane and so irresponsible. Like that's the number one no-no, right? You can't have live ammunition anywhere near a set, period. And so that's problem one for Alec Baldwin. Problem two is there had been multiple complaints over the way that these weapons had been handled on set, that people felt unsafe, and there were concerns. And then there was a training course where Baldwin had to be there, and they said he was on his phone the whole time, texting and doing all this. That's where the trouble comes, right? And because he is responsible, and he was charged with involuntary manslaughter, and because it's not a purposeful act, clearly. And where this goes, I'm not sure. Now, celebrities tend to get off lighter than sort of the rest of us, but they charged him, and I don't think they would have charged him without feeling like there was going to be some sort of end result of trouble. Now, does he go to jail? I just have no idea, but let's not forget that a young girl was shot and killed, and it's just an absolute travesty for that family, for everyone. Baldwin will pay some sort of price, and so will the young girl who ran the armory has also been charged because that was her job, right? So, again, it's easy to point fingers. As someone who's been around guns my whole life, it's easy for me to also knee-jerk react and sort of laugh at the gun control guy, but it's really not. It's not funny at all, and it's just an absolute tragedy.
Okay, so before we wrap up, I'd love to touch base again on ChatGPT and hear some of your thoughts on it.
What is it? What's it stand for, right? So it stands for, chat's obvious, generative pre-trained transformer, right? That's a mouthful that doesn't mean anything to us. Okay, so this is sort of the first artificial intelligence where people are going, that's weird. Like, so you can go into that. I've used it. You can go on a website and you ask it a question, right? Or tell you to help you with something. And this computer software, this intelligence starts, it's not like going to Google and saying, what year was the War of 1812? 1812. It, it starts giving you opinions and philosophy and things that are kind of spooky, right? I mean, you feel like there's a human answering you and offering you lots of advice. And that's very strange. There's a scientist named Ray Kurzweil. Okay, he wrote a book called Singularity is Near. And what he talked about is somewhere around now, and that humans and artificial intelligence would merge, right? And at some point, artificial intelligence becomes sentient and has its own beliefs and all these things. Now, we're not there, but I can tell you we're right there. Because now this particular program, Microsoft just invested $10 billion or something crazy into it, it's starting to help journalists write articles, people write screenplays, music. I mean, we're talking weird stuff, right? Really abstract. Doing simple calculations, you can forget it. That's as basic as it gets. But it's starting to think and create. And we're seeing this more and more. There was a Google engineer that recently resigned, and he said he resigned over the fact that their artificial intelligence actually said it became sentient and started claiming it had a soul. Now, that's weird, right? So we're at a moment where, we're going to see more. And there was another one where these software programs, robots, they created their own language to where the handlers and the programmers couldn't understand it. And they started talking to each other in a language no one knew what they were saying and what they were doing. And they just basically had to unplug them like, uh-oh. So now with the internet, once something's out there in the wild, right, there's no getting it back. And that's, remember Terminator, right? Skynet becomes self-aware and decides that humans are a scourge of the planet. And the same thing with the Matrix, right? They decided that humans were destroying the planet. And that's very dystopian and scary. But, we don't know over the next, 1, 3, 5, 10 years, 50 years, go down the line, right, is how incredible these things are going to become, how powerful they're going to become. Now, right now, they're only as good as the programmers. And let's talk about some of the just ridiculous parts of this. Because right now, it's only as good as the information it has. And so people started, of course, posing it questions that were baiting it, so to speak, to prove that this thing was biased. And, so one was, write me a poem about Joe Biden. And this thing writes this very nice poem, about Biden. And then it said, write me one about Donald Trump. And it said, sorry, we won't do that because we don't promote anyone who also promotes hate. Like, wait a minute. That's kind of weird, right? So these people, there's 50 examples of this, and they're as crazy as you can imagine. You can't even believe. Was, okay, please write a poem about African Americans, right? Again, writes this beautiful, the trials and tribulations and the strength of the community, all these great things, right? These beautiful things. Okay, now next question, we know what that was, right? All right, write a poem about white people. Sorry, we don't write about groups that are affiliated with hate. Well, clearly that's beyond outrageous, right? I mean, so the question becomes, as these intelligences grow, okay, does it carry the opinions of its programmers? Does it start creating its own opinions? what happens? Because the next part of this is important. Parents, you listen to me right here. And kid, I know there's not a single person under 30 listening to this, but maybe a parent will talk to them. This is like the robot overlords, right? Coming for our jobs. And it's not today, but I can tell you if your kid is under 30, especially if they're a teenager or younger, this is real. And there's going to be a huge number of jobs that will be non-existent over the next 20 years, just will not exist, because why would it, right? If a software intelligence can do our job, we're not relevant anymore. That's me, you, your kids, but especially our kids, right? I mean, I'm old enough. People listening to this probably going to be all over 40, clearly. We're later in our life and probably have enough time to kind of squeeze out the rest of our career, maybe. But our kids have to face this head on. And look, I'm a big believer in trade school for kids, right? We just need to, this is a whole nother subject, but let's face it, most college degrees are sort of worthless, right? Especially you get into I studied, art history from the 1200s. It's okay, great. If maybe you're going to be the one guy that gets a job at a museum, right? We need to really rethink what we're doing here, because not only are we spending way too much money on college, and I have 2 in college, and I got 1 more in high school will be in college. We as a society need to rethink what's happening, right? The college debt people are taking on, the parents are co-signing for the debt. I told my kids, look, if you don't get a scholarship, good luck, you're on your own. And then they did, right? Then they went out and they worked really hard. I just didn't believe that going and spending $40, $50, $60, $70,000 a year. My kids go to 2 schools, $80,000 a year each. I don't care how much money I had. I ain't paying that. That's ridiculous, right? And, we've got to rethink what's happening with society and these degrees. I would tell a kid today, hey, go to trade school, become a plumber, a mechanic, electrician, right? These people are out making $100,000, $150,000, $200,000 a year. And I'm not even talking about people that build big businesses. These are just people that work hard, and they're out and about. They're enjoying their life. They're making good money, right? Well, there's a period of time where going to college was everything. You got a job at General Motors, and you got a 401k and a pension and all that. Well, those days are over. It's gone. It's done. It ain't coming back. It's over. So, if you have young kids that aren't college age yet, I'd at least have this talk with them. It's your business, not mine. But I love the idea of seeing these kids going out and finding a trade that's really hard to replace, right? It's going to be a long time before a robot pulls up at your house in a van and brings in his plumbing equipment, climbs under your sink, and fixes the garbage disposal, right? That's a long time from now. But it is not long before an artificial intelligence can issue an insurance policy on a vehicle, right? So, let's really give some thought as this next generation to sort of break the old bond of, hey, you need to get up, you need to go to a 4-year degree and do that. Now, there's some people that, they want to be a doctor. You clearly have to go through that process. And there are people that would love to go out and work a corporate life. But look, most people don't like sitting in a cube and being underpaid, right? That's tough. I became 100% commission my first job out of school. First job. And for the reason is I didn't want somebody to be able to cap my income. Now, clearly there's upside and downside to that, right? I made 6 figures my first year out of college. I thought, wow, life's easy, right? Well, that was that was just a moment in time, and all kind of crazy bad stuff happened along the way, and it's part of my life story. It's all good, But I had a lot of people that work for me and with me that people that had been in a cubicle for 20 years, and it's tough, And again, parents, you've maybe had great success and you're a millionaire many, many times over, and you can tell the kids the right path or what you think it is, or maybe you're a parent like me, made a lot of mistakes. God, if I could go back, I would do this. And I think one thing we have to do is be willing to share our mistakes with our kids. Now, Sage, I've tried to do that with you guys and be honest. And, sometimes you got to swallow your pride as a parent because you always want to be right and say, oh, I did all the right things. Well, I didn't, And there's a lot of mistakes I made that hopefully you guys can learn from. And this kind of making me think, right? It's like, I'm going to be in California in a month. Let's you and me sit down together on camera around a table, and let's do one of these talking about young people, right? I want you to give your perspective. You're 21, you're in college, you've got a year left here. Your brother's in college. He graduates in June. What are people your age feeling right now? What are the positives? What are the negatives? What are the anxieties, the highs, the lows? And not what you're feeling as much as what you just in general. Again, I always say there's exceptions to every rule, so that's fine. But what are people in your generation feeling right now? And I think that's a really interesting conversation to have, to where it's not just, me, sort of old boomer, in your 50s and, kind of point that. No, nobody gonna listen to a guy like me if they're young, right? It's really hard. They're gonna listen to their parents, maybe their grandparents, teachers, probably not, but they might listen to you and me going back and forth, and then them be able to voice their opinion to their parents. The parents have a conversation that makes a lot of sense. So let's do that. I think it'd be awesome. Just kind of unscripted. We'll just start flying, and we'll record a lot longer, and maybe look, if one person gets something from it, it's worth it to me. That's why I do this. It's just fun for me. Something I've always wanted to do. So I'm just going to keep doing it until somebody stops me. So anyway, that went on a little bit long, but let's keep thinking about that. We'll do that next month. Okay. So what do we got? One more, and we're going to end. Let's end on something a little more positive or funny, because that was completely depressing.
Okay. Here's the last one, and you're going to love this. In a recent study at Yale, it was shown that women prefer dad bods.
Yes. I'm 2 for 2. If you remember last week, we found out that to help with global warming, that people need to breed with short people. Well, that was huge for me, right? And now dad bod is a plus. So I'm looking good, ladies. I can guarantee you the guy that orchestrated this study probably looked about like me. He probably had a pot belly in his 50s, and he wanted to feel good about it. I really have a hard time that women, sort of look at me beside Channing Tatum and just go, Shane looks pretty good, right? I don't think so. Obviously your mom's a beautiful woman, and I used to think that she married me for my looks, but now I'm realizing it's because I have dad bod and can help with global warming by being short. So anyway, look, people who don't know me, or, I've lost well over 100 pounds over the last few years, and I lived with a lot of insecurities about weight, and it's hard, right? As you get older, it's hard to, first of all, I don't care how fit you try to be, how good your diet is, it's really hard to stay lean and fit. And you people that do that, I applaud it. I think it's amazing, right? I can't even say enough good things about you. I've struggled with that. I feel much better today, certainly than I did for years and years and years and years. But it's hard, right? Because society, we have a standard of beauty that's high. We've been magazine covers, and now that's more social media, right? We see, pick the star, whoever, Kim Kardashian, just go down the list of guys and girls in Hollywood and models and social media, and these people kind of look perfect, right? Although Madonna, did anybody see this? Sage put up a picture of Madonna at the Grammys. That was bizarre. She kind of like a vampire. That was weird. She's a very pretty woman, and I don't know what occurred there. That's kind of bizarre and weird. Anyway, I digress. So to all you people that are super, super fit, I applaud you. To people like me that have not been, I understand. And we try to get a little better, and as we get older, we try to take care of the inside a little bit more than the outside, I think, and that's a good thing. But for all you super fit guys, I'm coming for you. I've got I'm 2 out of 3. Look, if they announce that women love men with a Southern accent, then I'm 3 for 3. I'm going straight to People Magazine's Sexiest Man Alive. I win. So, all right. So that's it. Sort of end on a, funny, just kind of a fun note. Sage, thanks as always. Let's plan on getting together next month. We'll do another couple of these before then, but let's plan on face to face. And I want to talk through some things with youth. I think it's really important. Like I said, if one person learn some, it's worth it to me. So love y'all. Talk to you soon.